All right, everyone. So we've got another video here from Hot Boy Spicy called "The Burden of Power in Naruto." Now, based on the thumbnail, I'm guessing he's probably going to be referencing the Uchiha clan the most in the video, and you wouldn't really blame him for doing so because the Uchiha clan, when you think about it, is probably the most broken clan in the entire Naruto universe, if you exclude the Otsutsuki clan, because obviously those guys just are insane when it comes to what they can do. But the Uchiha clan, again, like people who are born in that clan are just already a step above the rest because of how quickly they can advance when it comes to their skills in being a shinobi. And of course the Sharingan, which you don't need me to tell you what the Sharingan can allow a person to do. You already know how broken it is. But let's go ahead and watch this video. And guys, as always, remember to leave a like, share, and subscribe. If you're new, ring the bell for notifications. Leave a comment with your thoughts and also any videos you want me to react to. Just let me know about them in the comments, and check the description for links to this video as well as Hot Boy Spicy's channel. Make sure you head on over there, subscribe, go watch his videos. He makes really good content. So let's go ahead and watch this.
シャリンガンか。やっぱりこいつイタチの弟だぜ。オロチマルをやれたのもウチハの血のおかげってわけだ。
Well, there's that, but you gotta remember, like actually no, Deidara didn't know, but Sasuke himself even says that, Orochimaru was already weakened to begin with, so he saw a good opportunity and he took it.
血統に恵まれただけの勘違い野郎が。元来ウチハ一族は万華鏡車輪ガのために友と殺し合い、永遠の動力を得るために親兄弟で殺し合い、そうして力を誇示し続けてきた汚れた一族なのだ。その一族の中に生まれ落ちた時からお前もこの血塗られた運命に巻き込まれている。
Shinobi are tools. These tools become more precious with rarity, more desired, more sought after, more exploited. It's a mistake to say that these special powers allow one to thrive at the top of the hierarchy, because all lose in war. If shinobi are not tools for a group, an organization, a country, then they are tools for their own hatred, festering in the darkness that they propagate, sweeping others into the same void, until they eventually consume themselves with it. And if one does not have the privilege of being born with the ability to enact their wrath, then they can simply rob the power they require from someone else. But some find themselves even more fortunate than that, as is the case with Zabuza and Orochimaru. Haku died a splendid tool, not because he was sharp enough to defend the person he had always been tasked with protecting, but because the love he had for Zabuza was so boundless, it was worth sacrificing everything for. That love spawning from a place of comfort after only knowing discomfort for so long. The Kekkei Genkai Haku had was a detriment as far as he was concerned. It was only ever the opposite when Zabuza could put it to good use. A twisted love, one that was only reciprocated after the damage had already been done. Kimimaro could only fight, could only move because of his love for Orochimaru, the genetic power he wielded perpetually binding him down in a cage, trapping him in a violent solitude. It was only until Orochimaru decided to use him that he finally felt united with another. Yet Kimimaro himself acknowledged his own power as one that was not his, but entirely his master's. A tool at the mercy of another's manipulation, even at death's door. These individuals are never free to use their immense potential at their leisure. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite, as the baggage that comes with being special far outweighs the merit of these superior abilities. Tools in the shinobi world do not become sharper with ability alone, but with love. Love for violence, love for ascension, love for another, love for one's country, love for one's clan. Madara loved so much. It was that love that enabled him to do what many found impossible. And it was also that love that so easily twisted into contempt. And along with these feelings, power was always acquired. Tobirama voices his concerns on this very cycle, one that is synonymous with the Uchiha as a whole. He was wary of them not because of Madara, but because Madara was one of many. When one loves something so much, all the more hatred will spawn when that something is robbed from them. And with this transition into despair, immense power is found. for a race of people that feed off that despair in order to evolve. People like Tobirama who seek stability will only ever watch them with unease. Yet Tobirama himself cannot even see the hypocrisy in his own dogma, for he bears the burden of perpetuating a similar cycle of conflict. He was born inheriting Senju prowess, not only being a formidable powerhouse, but being equipped with the intelligence to create many things, the bulk of these creations lying in advanced ninjutsu.
So I just want to talk for a second about something that he mentioned about how, people born with superior, genetics are never allowed to explore them just at their own leisure, which, if you think about it, it does kind of suck because imagine you're born with this incredible ability and you're never allowed to just explore what this ability could do just for yourself, just for your own benefit. It's always for the benefit of something else. And again, if you look at the character of Sasuke, for example, he was never allowed to push himself to his limits just so he himself could see what his limit is, just so he himself could see how good, like, I could become. It was always either for his revenge, whether his revenge against Itachi and then his revenge against the Leaf, and then now it's just for the benefit of the Leaf, which is understandable because that's what shinobi do, and that's what every shinobi of the Leaf does, and obviously other villages and their shinobi, they do the same thing. But it just sucks that they're never allowed to explore what their abilities could do just for their own benefit. It's always for someone else. And yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks. The one moment that I think we saw where someone was just enjoying their ability was that little moment with Haku during the flashback when he figured out what he could do, and then that's it. Like, that's literally the only moment where we saw someone who was born with a Kekkei Genkai allowed to or show any joy in being able to do this. And every other time it's always used for someone else, which it kind of sucks when you think about it. All right, let's go back to where we were.
Lying in advanced ninjutsu. Jutsu he was inspired to create to defend his homeland. Yet, it is some of these same jutsu that eventually are used against the Leaf on more than one occasion. In keeping the same narrative of security for his beloved home in mind, he made the genetic gifts of the Uchiha an asset for the village to use at the clan's expense. This decision not performed out of malice, but out of love. Love for the foundations that his older brother built. Love for seeing those foundations mature and prosper into something greater. This love even worth laying down his life for, not because it was necessary, but because he didn't want to risk the future of Konoha being compromised, a future he saw in Hiruzen. Everything Tobirama did was for the village, because he loved it. Yet some of these decisions to help protect what he loved created whole new disasters that later endanger it, as is the case with Uchiha's conflict with the Leaf. Madara had the foresight to see this event occur long before it did. He, much like Tobirama, also believed his clan to be cursed, but he also had the insight to look beyond where Tobirama could not, for he saw the qualities of the Uchiha in all shinobi. If human beings experience love, loss, and hatred in a perpetual cycle, this cycle breeding ceaseless conflict, then is it not true that the Uchiha are merely a heightened showcase of the very nature of humans? To reject their nature is to reject the nature of humanity. But so many, including the leader of the very land they resided in, did just that. Madara viewed this scrutiny not with more contempt, but with escapism, opting to ascend into being something beyond human, so that he could lead the accursed humans into a land that would be free of burden. A new burden of godhood was placed on Madara after using his ascended eyes to decode his perceived fate of the world. Even if it went against the very conflict he so reveled in, Madara would devote his life to ending it. And to do so, he acquired even greater sight. Those with the Rinnegan inevitably are bound to a code of godhood, a code compelling these characters to find a solution for the world.
So it's amazing because to this day, this is still one of the most iconic shots in all of anime. So much so that now anytime you see a character up in the sky, people always just reference this.
Nagato attempted this, Obito attempted this, Madara attempted this, and eventually Sasuke.
Yeah, Sasuke too.
The Rinnegan itself seemingly carries the will of its first user. That first user longing for a world of peace. He was the first to
now we know that he's technically not the first, that there were people before him who also possessed the Rinnegan, so
discover that peace comes with understanding. So he created a power that would aid in that understanding he so longed for. Yet his descendants mature this energy into something diametrically opposed to its intention, attempting to use this spoiled power to achieve that same peace the sage sought after, when all that ever transpires from it is inevitably destruction. The Rinnegan gives access to some of the most powerful ninjutsu in existence, yet with users only ever attempting to find a road that would more align with Ninshu, what utility does this Kekkei Genkai actually pose for the betterment of their path? Nagato's story portrays this idea with a glaring affirmation. He longed to use his inherent potential to protect the ones closest to him, yet when he fails to do just that, his power becomes null with wrath. Wrath for his enemy, and wrath for the world that so readily perpetuates the cycle that spawned his grief. In that wrath he sought rebirth through pain, the pain he inflicts upon his
Alright guys, you know I gotta pause every now and then for copyright.
enemies ricocheting right back at him. Even physical harm he once enacted upon others blighting him, his power literally binding his body, rendering it immobile. But it's only after reversing all the pain he had caused with his ocular gift that he is finally freed from his burden.
So I've talked about this before, but this always didn't really make a lot of sense to me, especially when you consider the fact that we see later on that by absorbing Biju Chakra, he could just go back to being how he was, with the exception of being able to use his legs. I think that's pretty much gone, which also kind of confuses me because like the Biju Chakra can heal your injuries, so I don't understand why they didn't heal his feet. But all right, whatever. I guess that's one of those things that just kind of didn't really enter Kishimoto's mind when he was writing it. And yeah, just this always kind of bothered me, especially when you consider what happens in the fourth Great Shinobi War, where he'd go back still looking how he did before, as in not a skeleton.
Using one grand jutsu so unlike the others in his repertoire, a jutsu that does not rob life, but restores it. This action granting resolution and union to foes so at odds. The Rinnegan is a power itself born from the union of Senju and Uchiha DNA, which in a world where these two clans are such bitter enemies, it's no wonder that both sides could not so easily discover that greater abilities were locked behind their cooperation. The origin story of this long-running conflict itself begins when one was bestowed gifts over another, the larger cut that the younger brother acquired ultimately amounting to nothing in the face of all the despair that preceded. And it's no wonder that Hagoromo could not foresee this happening, for it was his younger brother that so readily accepted an inferior position for the sake of maintaining peace. But that peace was never maintained on Earth nor the moon. The Otsutsuki branch family used the power of the Tenseigan to enact their interpretation of Hamura's words, even eliminating the main family to see these words through. And on Earth, the roles were reversed, with the Hyuga clan's main family keeping the branch family chained down for their perceived betterment of the clan. They encaged the lower echelon to keep their secrets safe. Yet it is the very defiance of this authoritative position that not only kept the secrecy of their abilities intact, but maintained peace within their land. Hisashi's final adherence to his free will as a person is what ultimately benefits the Leaf, not adherence as a tool for his clan. But despite this fact, the Hyuga continued conforming to the same narrow dogma that is universal to the world. This stagnation breeding another cursed soul, Neji Hyuga. His Hyuga bloodline, his Kekkei Genkai, the Byakugan, it only represents all that he suffers from. Every move, every technique that is exclusive to his kind look like limitations to him. Yet he hypocritically always tried to defy those limitations forcibly placed on him, despite only ever talking about how one's fate is set, using the Chunin exams as an avenue to enact wrath upon the main family, and developing the rotation to spit in the face of their secret technique. Yet it was in the aftermath of his battle with Naruto that allowed him to look past his grief, and even later amend it. This new path he found, later enabling him to use his power productively, not for his sole benefit, but for the benefit of the one that once did so much for him. Neji's sacrifice.
So I've always wondered, why didn't he just use rotation here to blow away the pieces of wood?
Mirroring his father's, not only in its liberating beauty, but also in
I mean, I get what Kishimoto was trying to do, but still, sucks that he died like this.
With his final action, Sasuke continued to use his clan's gifts to spread more grief, not just for others, but for himself. His passion for love, his passion for hatred, all projected in the color of his eyes, a striking red, the color of passion. Sasuke frequently feigns a cool head and aloof nature, but those eyes expose the profound emotions always rampant in his consciousness. It is these profound feelings that illuminate his greatest asset. It first bloomed to protect a comrade in peril, evolved further when forced to inflict harm on that same comrade, claimed ascension when his worst pain is realized, and reaches its greatest potential when Sasuke is more lost than he ever is before. So much power, yet only ever utilized at his own expense. But Sasuke could never see this, for the pride he has in this power blinds him of its blighting reality, his passionate pride for his clan's abilities on full display against Orochimaru. He comments on his disgust with Orochimaru's methodology to ascend, using many, toying with life. It is that
Also, I just want to note real quick.
Orochimaru. He comments on his disgust with Orochimaru's methodology to ascend, using many.
I just want to point out that here in the anime you can see them chained, but in the manga this looks way more brutal. And another reason why I would always recommend you read the manga as opposed to watching the anime, because you'll see just how much more brutal the manga is compared to the anime, because they kind of have to censor it because, you know, I think there's like TV practices they have to adhere to, like rules, because of, I think, when the anime was airing, so they can't show certain things because there might be kids watching. But yeah, the manga, way more brutal, which to me was always kind of weird because they were afraid of showing this to kids, but the manga is also, again, aimed at kids, and yet, I don't know, it's weird.
Toying with life. It is that desperate attempt to seek power by inflicting misery on many that leads to his downfall. Yet, this is not even the crux of Sasuke's detestment, his disgust lying mainly in an inferior specimen attempting to reach the same status as his clans. Sasuke denounces Orochimaru's feeble attempt as nothing more than wretched, even viewing Orochimaru's ambition as synonymous with Itachi's massacre in nature. But it is in his blind hatred, his immense pride for his own power, that he is unable to see how he mirrors the very person he despises most, crushing someone below him, mocking them for even attempting to contest all the while. Even Sasuke's comment on how all jutsu are meaningless before his eyes is the very same phrase Itachi once uttered to Orochimaru years ago. His eyes discerned Orochimaru's nature, discerned his ultimate technique, yet they could not discern
He was able to
irony of
reverse
his
it.
words, nor that even this event is one completely accounted for and dancing in the palm of his older brother's hands. A powerful tool that becomes too much for Orochimaru to handle, yet still being weaponized by another's manipulation. A weapon forged and sharpened to achieve a narrow goal. That power meaningless when the completion of that goal is revealed to be a facade. And during this journey of willingly submitting oneself to the status of a tool, Sasuke found himself face to face with a man who uses the tragedy that ignited his misery as a weapon against him. Through those eyes that could not change the fate of the ultimatum Danzo himself proposed, Danzo uses them to change his own, again and again. But ironically, it is not a massive influx of power from Sasuke's evolving Mangekyo that defeats Danzo, but instead, a basic genjutsu. Because for a man so confident in his ability to change the future, all Sasuke needed to do was disrupt the foundations that enabled that future to prosper. The advantage Danzo acquired at the expense of so many, ultimately becoming the leader.
He never thought a
disadvantage
basic
that eased his
genjutsu would be what
ambition.
takes him down.
But the aftermath of this battle saw even more baggage accompanied with Sasuke's genetic gifts. His power.
Not the
disabling
Mangekyo,
engines,
not the Izanagi, none of that. No, just simple basic genjutsu took the guy down.
seen clearly. And even when that clarity returns, his vision becomes muddled yet again when Itachi lays his failures regarding Sasuke and the clan bare. All after using a jutsu so unlike anything Sasuke had ever seen before. A powerful jutsu, sacrificing the eye that cast it, not to benefit the caster,
Which
but to
it's
benefit
still
the one
weird
that
how
was
they were
casted
able
on.
to,
Quite similar.
how Itachi was able to use it since Kishimoto said you need Senju and Uchiha DNA to use an ability like the Izanagi, and yet for some reason he could use Izanami, which is kind of the same thing, and yet Itachi didn't have Senju DNA, so how? It's, again, something else that probably escaped Kishimoto's mind.
Similar to the Izanagi Danzo exploited, yet very different at the same time. One sacrificing power for the sake of the user, the other sacrificing power for the sake of the enemy. Where Sasuke so easily fooled his opponent using the knowledge he had of the fundamentals of Izanagi, Izanami is a jutsu that cannot be disrupted until the affected ceases to fool themselves. A jutsu very fittingly not only used against a man like Kabuto, but to be displayed to Sasuke, a man that, for quite some time now, has been incapable of looking at himself, despite his superior eyes that can see so much. Itachi used his clan's power as a tool to help propagate a path that not only diverged from them, but opposed all sides he cared for, even allying with someone who once used that very same power to attack the village he was trying to protect. This irony not rooted in a transition towards malevolence, but one born out of circumstance. Itachi was born gifted, not only being a prodigy amongst prodigies in terms of abilities, but having the intelligence and temperament of a wise man at the age of a child. His gifts enabled him to be an asset for anyone who needed him. But therein lies the problem, because both sides he cared for needed him in order to harm the other. His innate gifts ultimately led to suffering in the form of the most painful decision in the story. And that painful decision led to one more harmful blow that not only affected him, but the one he cared for the most. After using those eyes to manipulate his loved one, blinding him to any other diverging path, he becomes more and more blind to himself. His decaying vision, brought upon by his eyes' abilities, mirroring his struggle to see the error of his ways. He cryptically mocks Sasuke for his inability to truly see, yet his Achilles' heel is located in the very same vein. A man that only discovers his hypocrisy after death. But here, during the duration of his second chance, Itachi forgoes an aspect of power that he once used in an attempt to orchestrate the outcome that solely he desired, to create an outcome that benefits so many, even the enemy. And that decision not only aids him in his final words to Sasuke, but helps preserve his brother's life again, one that he has always sought to protect. Itachi's genius, his genetics, his abilities were always synonymous with the clan he had to annihilate, the clan he had to take away from his little brother, the decision he made for his clan that initiated his ultimate failure. Yet here, after casting a part of that power that made him so formidable aside, he is finally able to amend some of the mistakes that sprouted from his burden of genius all those years ago. But Obito could never. Power is what he seeks to reach the world he desires, where Madara's abilities are exploited by Black Zetsu. So were Obito's inherent gifts exploited by Madara. Even after death, Obito carried on his will, becoming Madara himself, ascending further like his predecessor before him, that progress bearing immense weight on his shoulders, compelling him to seek more power just for the meager hope that his previous life can be retrieved, a life that was at its brightest when Obito was still a talentless loser among his clan's prodigies. And on this new journey after abandoning incompetency, he comes face to face with a remnant of his previous power. Power that didn't mean anything if it couldn't protect. Power inherited by another. It was through that eye that Rin was saved, and it was also through that eye that she was slain. Where that eye enabled Kakashi to do what his comrade had once done for him, it also later became a liability for Madara to exploit. And all of Obito is exploited at the end of his road. But in turn, Madara's final ascension is exploited as well, the users ultimately becoming the used. The showcase
I still
of these
don't
two
know why
riding
Madara
into the
died.
trail in this final arc, paralleling the same phenomenon in the very first arc of the story. Haku used by Zabuza, Zabuza used by Gato.
And by that I mean it's like Obito had the same thing done to him where the beasts were extracted and yet he was alive, but Madara dies? Like, that's always something that never really made any sense to me.
All parties suffering consequences ending in death. Yet, at the end of his road, Zabuza defies the cyclical nature of shinobi, not only retrieving his dormant humanity, but inspiring a boy that would one day inspire the whole world. The end of this conflict seeing the creation of the Great Naruto Bridge. A bridge connecting a path from one side to another, a fitting name based on a man longing to connect two conflicting sides with a bridge called understanding. And here, that same man comes face to face with a form of a once human that seeks to understand no one. A rebirthed goddess who was once above all, standing atop those who portrayed their vast array of emotions.
Well, we know now she was never human. She was an alien from another planet who came to Earth to take its power, basically.
Their eyes,
But technically not a rebirthed human.
Soundingly hollow. A clear objective, a clear consciousness, no mental fatigue, no emotional baggage, and most importantly, overwhelming power. A perfect shinobi in every way, the ultimate tool. Wars, shinobi, people, all propelled into conflict by her minion. All of this despair, just so she can once again lay claim to everything, to the source of all power, no partners, no comrades, only what can be used or discarded. If they seek strength, they are an enemy. If they seek refuge with her, they are an asset. Yet it is through her one exception to this hollow nature, her sons, that she is defeated once again. The only residual human emotion that she perceives herself to be so above is the very thing that eventually leads to her final demise. Not through resistance of a superior magnitude, but of marginal powers that ultimately amount to more with cooperation. Their cooperation only being this viable due to the emotional bonds linking these characters. And the same message is resonant in the final confrontation of the series. Exploitation of the tailed beasts, cooperation with the tailed beasts, the latter coming out on top. Not through extinguishing life with force, but by using his words, as he had done time and time before. Naruto inched closer and closer towards his goal by looking at his opponents, while Sasuke became more and more misguided by always looking through them. Even when the herald of his newfound power asks him to watch the end of a fellow reincarnation that walked down a similar path of failure, Sasuke only finds fault with Madara, condemning him for his use of the tailed beasts, when he hypocritically would use them.
And then he goes on to do the same
their
thing.
Power to create a world even more fictitious than his ancestors. He cannot see where his road would inevitably lead. He cannot see why Naruto always seems so far ahead of him, even when their powers are so evenly matched. He cannot see because he cannot understand. And of course he wouldn't, because he never tried to understand in the first place. Always looking at resistance as an obstacle and nothing more.
Which is kind of interesting, because that's one thing that Sasuke keeps throwing at Naruto, that he couldn't understand why he does what he does, and Sasuke can't understand why Naruto does what he does. Like, it's something that he just, like, it's weird to him. Like, he doesn't understand why someone would do this.
When he could have seen so much.
And it's understandable why he feels that way, considering what he went through as a kid.
He only looked. The only time Naruto followed this same methodology against an opponent, he prevailed, only to have that victory linger with a taste of defeat shortly after. The ability he earned following that short-lived road becoming more of a liability than an asset. Yet, it was in his very next major confrontation that he was able to use his ability without drawback, an advantage he earned after receiving motivation from the past. Where Sasuke's words are rooted in the future for the sake of the future, Naruto's words are rooted in the past for the sake of the future. Sasuke would cast away the world's past, because it was that past that blessed Sasuke with combative gifts, only to watch idly as he suffered from them. The same with Naruto, the only difference being that burden has found union with him through reconciliation. Reconciliation that was only achieved by facing his past. And here, after Sasuke fails to take down Naruto with sheer might, he is forced to remember his own, forced to reconcile with a past where he used his gifts in all the wrong ways. It is not Naruto's equal force that cures Sasuke's ailment of power, his genetic burden, but Naruto's abilities when he's at his physically weakest state. Abilities called tenacity, perseverance, endurance, understanding.
I always thought it was called Talk no Jutsu, but okay.
Power lost by the end of this battle, yet coming away from this conflict greater shinobi still.
All right, sorry about that, guys.
Hey,
let's continue.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a nice thumbs up. Helps me reach new people. And if you enjoy this type of content and are new, consider subscribing so I'm in your feed. My Naruto videos in particular are starting to gain a bit of traction. So as I've said before, I'm focusing my attention on Naruto for now until I run out of compelling ideas. I plan on making a Discord, and even a Patreon for those who are interested. I'll have it all set up soon and reveal the links come next upload. Speaking of the next upload, it's going to be a sort of extension of this video where I go more in depth on Madara, Obito, and Tobirama in particular. So if you felt me discussing the resolutions was missing here, fret not, because I have thought of that as well. It's just the more elaborate things I have to say about them don't really fit in with the topic of this video. So please, look forward to that. Okie doke, that's about it. Spice Boy out.
Okay, so that's the video, and yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with, you know, or I guess I don't disagree with anything that was said in the actual video. You know, unfortunately, when in the Naruto universe, if you're born with power, that power also comes with a burden, and it depends. You know, it's like you said, whether it's a burden of using it for someone else or to satisfy your own, you know, hatred or your own goal. It's never just for wanting to just explore what that power is. You know, kind of like what I said earlier. No one, like, let's take the Uchiha clan for example, or the ones that we know, like Sasuke. We never see him exploring what his abilities could do just because he's curious what they can do or what their limits are. It's always for something else. And even now, that's still continuing. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe. You guys know what to do. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to leave any recommendations you have for other videos you want me to react to in the comment section. And remember to hit the bell for notifications and check the description for links. Bye for now.